So these are some of the tips, though, just based on our experience. These are some of the things that can really help you mitigate some of those negatives or mitigate some of those challenges. The first thing that I would suggest that you do is create some type of communication guide. I call ours our critical communication guide. And you want to do that before you actually go remote. Now, I know a lot of people are already remote um, during the crisis. You can still go back and create this, especially if you're starting to see a lot of the miscommunication. But since we started as a virtual team, we never really sat down to create one of these things in the beginning, and that was really a challenge. So we created it as we went along based on the mistakes and challenges that we experienced. Now, I don't suggest that you do this, by the way. It's a very costly way to create the communication guide. And it doesn't have to be comprehensive and it doesn't have to be extremely detailed, but you should put whatever guide that you're creating in writing. You want to make it to where people can go to it, read up on it, see it, and that way it's clear. It's easier for everybody to kind of know, okay, this is how we're going to communicate during this time period. The document is basically just a way for you as the leader to outline your expectations of how your team is going to communicate. For instance, we've got internal projects that sometimes have 4 or 5 people that may be working on each individual project. And each of those team members needs to know the protocol for how to let the other team members know when the project is ready for input from one of the other team members. For example, we've recently been working at our office here on creating and releasing online mini courses, and the team consists of 4 people. It's got me, it's got the videographer, the website person, and the copywriter. And the website person can't really do a lot, though, until the copy is written and the video is completely edited. So it's important for each of those team members to keep her in the loop on the timetable. So as they complete one of the ad copies, make sure that gets sent over to her and she knows about it. So it's prior to having the guide in place, by the way, team members would kind of jump from project to project, not realizing that some of their coworkers were actually waiting for them to complete a task. And the more incidents like that occur, the higher the frustration level is going to be. So you just want to be really careful about the communication, because that's going to be one of the really major challenges of working remotely. A few things that you should probably include in this communication guide that can help you avoid miscommunication. One of the things that we do is, especially since we've gone back to being a virtual company temporarily, is we started to do a daily face-to-face meeting via Zoom. Now, you can do this on a conference call or something like that, but the reason why we like to do it with Zoom is that the collaboration challenge that we talked about before can be reduced if you have face-to-face meetings more often. You don't necessarily have to do them daily like we're doing them, but you can start with daily and then you can adjust them as needed. So as the leader, though, you're going to experience a higher level of comfort with your virtual team if you can see them daily. We communicate a lot of information visually when we speak. So email, texting, phone calls, and chat, they're less efficient and they have a higher chance of creating problems or miscommunication. People start reading tones into different things like that. Whereas if we actually see the person face to face, it's a little bit easier to make sure that communication has occurred. Second thing that you can do in your communication guide is keep your meeting short and have an agenda. So when you meet with your team, outline the agenda of what we're going to cover in that conversation, what we're going to cover in that meeting. And if you want team members to give you an update on a project, give them a warning. Put that in the agenda, because if you just call on them on the spur of the moment, especially if they're not really used to communicating via Zoom or one of the other portals that you're using, you're going to get less participation. Now, typically about 30 minutes is a good maximum time for a meeting. And by the way, that's the same whether you're in an office or virtual. If you let the time get away from you, you're going to be wasting. If your team is in a meeting, they're not really being productive. So that's one of the things that kind of keep in mind. Another thing that we use, another tool that we use that's really helpful, is we use Slack so that everybody can stay in the loop. And we use Slack, by the way, to share information within the team. And if you've never used this before, if you've never used this tool before, in short, it's a way to chat with your team members, but the chats are stored and they're cataloged. The conversations that we have are stored and cataloged, and they're cataloged into things that are called channels. That's the term that they use, and channels are basically topics. So to understand the brilliance of the concept, I'll give you an example, because I guess I got to admit I was a little resistant to Slack before I really saw the value, and now I can't think of actually doing business without this tool. It's really effective. But I'll give you an example of how where Slack can be helpful. So my church has a text group, and on occasion, my pastor will send out a group text, and every time he does, my phone blows up for the next hour with people in the group replying to let the pastor know that they got the text, right? So if there's 100 people or 1,000 people on a text, oh my gosh, and all it takes is a few people for every text to kind of reply back, and all of a sudden you get beep, 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 and it kind of blows up. Well, and it can get a little annoying. So if you're a manager of a remote group, you may be tempted to just quickly send out a message, whether by email or text or something like that, to the whole group. And as people respond, the rest of the folks are going to start to get annoyed. With Slack, your team can choose which channels are important for them to receive notifications. So for instance, let's say a customer has a question. Well, that question can be funneled to our sales channel on Slack. So when the request comes in, the entire sales staff can, if they want to, get notified instantly and simultaneously. So everybody kind of sees it. Or it could be that only a single salesperson or a group of 2 or 3 salespeople or a group of salespeople are on duty at any given time. So they've turned their notifications on, everybody else turns them off. You can do stuff like that. You can get out of the group chat fairly easily. And so so a single sales rep now that receives that text or that chat can reply to the channel with a check mark, letting everybody in that channel know that they've gotten the request and that they're following up on it. So just really quick and easy. That way nobody else has to worry about it. And you as the manager at the end of the day can go into the channel and look at all of the activity. You can look and see at everything that happened that day. So it's a really, really neat tool for helping you keep organized and helping you go back to kind of see what your team is doing without having to look over the shoulder the whole time. The sales rep can also go into your social media channel or marketing channel at any time to see what the marketing team is working on. So they don't necessarily have to get updates when the marketing team does something, but if they want to kind of see, hey, what are the marketing pieces that are going to go out, they can go and look at the discussions that the marketing team has been having. So I mean, it's very helpful. We find it to be very useful for a lot of different things. And so I would encourage you to investigate Slack a little bit. Here's a little bonus tip, by the way. This is one that we've actually just started using recently. We didn't use this back in the olden days when we were an entirely virtual team, but since we've started using Slack and we can do this, this has been so helpful, especially with as many changes as are occurring and how frequently those changes are occurring in the business world right now. And so a bonus tip would be to post to Slack with frequent summaries of what's kind of going on. So we actually created a new channel called Daily Updates, where each manager goes in at the end of the day or sometime toward the end of the day anyway, to give a quick summary of what their team worked on that day. Usually it's just 1 sentence or 2 sentences, and it's very high level stuff. But the summary allows the team members to go to a single place to identify major ideas or changes that are going on company-wide. And if the team member sees something of interest, he or she can just click on that particular channel to find out more. So if the high-level item that the marketing manager posted in the daily summary was of interest to somebody, they can actually go into the marketing channel and get more details about it.